Just take the opportunity to give Steve from the Central Coast a shout out. Come up and say g'day. And
South Coast.
South Coast is too. Shell Harbour. What am I talking about? That way. Good mate of Baz's, so see how he goes there. Yeah. He's up here doing a bit of work, so hope he gets home safe this weekend, enjoys the show. Let's get into Brisbane 36, defeating the Titans 28, Barney.
Yeah, would have loved watching this one, didn't you, Ali?
Oh, don't you tip the Broncos. Don't you tip the Broncos. Dickhead.
6 tries to 5 out of 6 conversions for the Broncos, 4 out of 5.
I like it how Ollie, as only this week, Ollie put up his 12-month anniversary of how much he loves us. Yes. It took him 12 months to finally call me a dickhead. I salute you, Ollie.
1 out of 1.
Saving it for a special occasion.
1 out of 1 penalty goals for Brisbane. 84% completion, played 94%. That doesn't seem right. I think it might have written that down incorrectly. 32 out of 38 sets. No, played 30 out of 32 sets. 6 line breaks to 4. 24 tackle busts to 29. 12 offloads, played 13. 2 forced dropouts from each side. 303 tackles, played 319. 2 ruck infringements by the Broncos, 5 by the Titans. And both teams had a set restart for inside the 10. 6 line breaks to 4. No, I'm going back over where I was. 3 penalties conceded by Brisbane and 5 by the Titans. 8 errors, played 5. There's a bin for the Titans. Haas made 36 tackles. Rain made 36 tackles. Oates with 199 metres. AJ with 218 metres. Isaako with 156 Supercoach points. AJ with 91. And Mitch Rain with 84.
Why don't you call him a dickhead when he stuffs up his stat?
GT's going to have to come up with some type of concept and record every time Barney stuffs up a stat.
He's got enough to do, GT. Maybe he doesn't, actually. It sounds like he doesn't have enough to do. It's the problem. But, well, it was a game of, well, not even, it was a game of 4 quarters, I suppose, and Brisbane owned them in 3 of them.
Absolute rollercoaster.
Here's the thing for Titans. Even though they're up 20, they don't play direct. Like, their hooker doesn't run forward. Their halves run side to side. Actually, lucky to run it all. Yeah. And AJ, at least he got a couple through the ruck there.
It was one of his best games.
It was.
He had a good game.
20 minutes, and he busted a hole off the hook, off the dummy half, which is fine. But after that, I think Fafita had 4 runs in the whole first half. There's issues there. I think there's deeper issues than we probably realised. Brisbane, though, they took advantage of it. Isaako was explosive, given chance and time and space, which I guess maybe just showed his quality. Probably, obviously, his breakout game in first grade, really, for what he achieved for the night. Tyson Gamble's got a bit of mungle, showed a little bit. I don't know if that helped Milford, maybe a little bit. He was better. But the Brisbane forwards just started steamrolling and the Brisbane backs followed them. Like they beat a pretty ordinary team in the second half. At least that was my takeaway. Do you have much to add?
So Tyson Gamble, right? Since about, 2012, 2013, back then he was, meant to be a bit of a prodigy, one of the better halves coming through the juniors. Was at the Tigers for a bit. I think he even had a bit of time at Penrith, never really lived up to it. But 9 years later, decides to live up to his potential against the Titans. I mean, that pissed me off a bit. I'm not going to lie, but no, good on him. The Broncos may have actually found a half, one of their halves for 2022.
Oh, he's well and truly up for this game.
So good on him. But yeah, the Titans. I mean, I'm just trying to think of where they go from here, which is a bit odd. Again, they're in that cluster, so if they don't cock up too much more, then they might end up 7th or 8th. But for me, if they don't win 2 of their next 3, which I'm actually tipping they won't, then they're in huge trouble, like big trouble. And yeah, I mean, good on Brisbane. I've said before, and this is another annoying thing, I've sort of said to get more interest in the game, I'd love to see sort of higher scoring games, more entertaining games for the mainstream, and obviously upsets as well. You got to see upsets and a bit of a closer competition. And I said as long as it's not at my team's expense, but this weekend it was at my team's expense. So yeah, I had a jolly old time watching this one, and that sort of just rubbed it in even more. Everything that could have gone wrong really did go wrong. I would say the 20-point lead after 16 minutes was something that went wrong, because I'd rather Brisbane had just owned the whole game than have that hope. While we were actually at Club Redfern, I was refreshing my phone. I was thinking, how good's this? Every time I refresh my phone, the Titans have another 6 points. And then it started going the other way. I thought, okay, well, Brisbane are getting a couple here, and yep.
Barney, you're quite critical just then. What are you going to say on record?
That first 15 minutes, it looked like Brisbane were going to get beaten by 80. As you said, the Titans were quite direct in that first 10 minutes or so. They were playing back towards the post quite a bit. The Fogarty had the ball on a string with a couple of nice little kicks in behind, which led directly to points. Isaako couldn't catch a ball for the first 10 or 15 minutes. He looked like he was going to get hooked after about 10 minutes. And then he just started to chime in on the back of those halves and pushing into holes, creating everything. He in attack, he was absolutely brilliant for the Broncos for the next 60 minutes after that first 15 or 20. Gamble, as we said, he looked like he was up for it. He's a scrapper. I'm not sure you're going to get that kind of effort and desire out of him week after week after week, but
it's something.
In this game,
I think that's something that Kevy relates to, and he'll be able to at least say, right, here's my boy. I'm going to.
Well, it's also like, who's better than him? He's the best half there at the moment.
He was aggressive. Yeah. He threw a couple of nice passes. He put a few guys into some nice holes as well. Ash Taylor had one or two nice touches. He set up a try and then he just disappeared into the background again. He may as well have gone and sat down on the bench or fucking somewhere in the crowd.
Which is odd because we usually get our two good games out of Ash Taylor each year against the Broncos.
Yeah, but he may as well have gone and sat in the crowd and cheered on the Broncos realistically, because he was doing more for the Broncos than what he was for the Titans for a large part of that game. Fafita just didn't seem interested at all until there was about 20 minutes left and he thought, oh fuck, I could get the match-winning try here, and then started having a crack. Rain and Peachy were very good. They were the best from the Titans. And I'll add Fogarty to that. He didn't really didn't miss too much. He missed a few tackles, but that's a weekly thing with him and Ash Taylor. That's just halves get targeted, and unless you're a really strong defensive half,
tend to be more forgiving of them.
A complaint you can have for nearly every. I'm not going to say every half because there are exceptions, but nearly every half in the competition, we seem to be saying, "Oh yeah, they're great in attack, but they're poor in defence." Like that most just seems to be the thing with halves these days.
Mo was their best forward.
But you get the thing about that is it goes both ways. Is their biggest player is going to run at the half, so it's
exactly that feeds into it.
Yeah,
they get targeted. It doesn't help. Their centres don't help their halves at all because their centres can't tackle and their halves can't tackle either. So you just put them standing them next to each other. It's just going to fucking create all sorts of problems.
I still don't understand why. Tino obviously will help, but why they're not having the three big guns, three Origin players starting each week.
Yeah.
Push Tino that pair
back
wider
now, isn't he?
Yeah,
he wasn't
but he's starting prop this week, which they're going back to what they're doing. Play all three, get them on the field. At least that give you some starch, and Tino can play a pair wider and help your centres out a bit.
Hassan, TPJ just absolutely owned this pack. Mo was good. He was strong when he was out there. He was the Titans' best forward, but Haas and TPJ, Haas just did his work. He wasn't outstanding. He made a few tackle busts,
and
but he didn't dominate like he has against a few other teams. Yeah. But Pangai Jr. was destructive. He was busting holes.
This year to date,
you can argue he's been outstanding. Their best player.
He has.
Well, he's been
you can make an argument for it. Yeah.
Well, remember last year, there's games he didn't want to be there. And this year, he looks like he wants to be there.
Last year, I don't think there's been a game where you haven't noticed him this year. He's been very destructive with the ball, and he's been putting some shots on too.
And he threw a beautiful cutout and a few other balls as well.
Coming into this one, we sort of all ramped up for Fafita saying he could score 1,000 tries. But just going back to the first time they played each other, TPJ made it his mission to come out and put shots on him, and he did it again in this one. Yeah. And he rattled him a couple of times. He was everywhere. I thought he was probably the best player on the field behind Isaako because he just cut him to shreds. What can you say? They gave away a match-winning lead after 15 minutes, and just the defence on their edges, their centres and halves, they need to do something there. I think Masters might help because he's probably one of the better defensive centres, but
can get lazy though too.
You can get lazy, yes.
Well, yeah, we'll get to it, but the Titans aren't winning next week.
Let's get to that. Cool, we've probably spoken enough. I think the big takeaway is probably what we've said a bit is that I think if Brisbane play like they did for most of this game, they will beat the bottom half of this comp. Yeah. They've got the firepower at least, even forward back alone. And if Isaako is going to play like that each week, we've said it enough that golden era of fullbacks, but you need a fullback, and if he can chime in and do fullback things.
That move he put on when he ran 70 metres, man, fuck, that was slick.
But isn't it amazing, a little bit of confidence? Like, all of a sudden you get your tail up and off you go. Here, 2 tries, 2 try assists, 3 line break assists, 2 line breaks. Good day out, which gets him 3 points. I agree with you, TPJ 2 and Haas 1. I think they probably led the way. If you want to make a case for Gamble, but I think that was where it's at.
Leave it with those 3, I'm pretty sure.